I wanted to thank you for joining me on this episode of Doing Insurance Right. My name is Scott Jenkins. I'm your host. I'm a local farmers insurance agency owner here in Phoenix, Arizona. And today I just wanted to go over if you own a rental property, so a landlord policy, on what you might need to look at, what you want to take a look at, like in terms of what kind of coverages you need, and what kind of liability you might want, and things of that nature. So first of all, if you are a landlord and you own like either a single family dwelling home, multi-family, or duplex, any of those options, the first thing you want to take a look at is just to make sure you have plenty of coverage for the structure of the house. And then if you have any detached structures, or separate structures, to make sure you have coverage for those as well. So the price of materials, labor, and everything has went up across the country in order to get replacement cost on those. So you just want to make sure you've got enough coverage in order to get that done. So looking at, basically just updating the policy, making sure it's got the right roof type, making sure it's got the right outside wall finish, making sure we have the right number of bathrooms, bedrooms. This also could be on your personal home as well, but definitely want to make sure it on a landlord policy, because obviously we're not there every day like we are in our personal home. So it's just something to keep in mind. So the second one is you want to take a look at, and this can vary quite a bit of cost as well, is going to be personal property. So if it's a furnished home and you want to make sure you have coverage for all the furnishings, like couches, beds, tables, so on and so forth. And what those would be, either replace them with the cost of new. With the price of everything going up, obviously the price to replace those things has went up as well. So trying to make sure we have enough coverage there for that. The big one I would always point out when you are a landlord are two big areas. Number one is going to be personal liability. So this is our getting sued account on your insurance policy. So on a landlord policy, I definitely would recommend at a minimum of $500,000, just to make sure. A lot of companies are going to limit it on pool. If you have a swimming pool, for example, that might be the max that they allow, but I would definitely make sure I have as much there as I possibly can. If it's $1 million, great, or more, depending on what company you're with. That's a fantastic area to make sure you have covered in case you were to get sued by a tenant, or they did something, or they had somebody over working on something and then they sued. So just making sure you have plenty of coverage there. The next one's going to be loss of rents or loss of use. A lot of companies call it different things. So here's something you want to keep in mind. So for example, let's say there was a fire or something at that particular home that you own and rent out, or even in your personal, this would come into place as well. We want to make sure that we're not missing out on rent opportunities because the client or your renter had to go somewhere else to live because the house was what they call uninhabitable, or you couldn't spend the night because maybe smoke or water damage or something to that effect, that they couldn't stay the night, therefore affecting your rent, because you don't want to, hard to charge rent when they can't stay at the property, right? So making sure that you have that coverage is going to be extremely important. And you want to make sure we try to have like 12 to 24 months, somewhere in that range of coverage. So for example, if you have, let's say you charge $3,000 a month for rent, that's going to be $36,000 that you're going to want to make sure you have, at a minimum, you have coverage for. If you can get $72,000, fantastic, to cover you for a couple of years, depending on how slow or fast everything gets done in your region. But you want to make sure you have plenty of coverage to cover that portion. Because if you have a mortgage, the mortgage isn't going to stop because the house is uninhabitable for, let's say, several months. The mortgage is going to continue to come. You want to make sure you have coverage to make that payment, and therefore you don't fall financially behind. So loss of rents / loss of use, including loss of rents, that's going to be a big area you want to make sure that you have plenty of. And then there are going to be some other things too. So a lot of companies have options for what they call service line endorsements, which is going to be like power coming into the house, water coming into the house from the street, those kind of things. Maybe that coverage, backup of water and sewer. If it's an older home, I definitely would make sure, we have that coverage as well. One thing we probably, if it's an unfurnished home, obviously we don't need a lot of personal property coverage. So there's areas where we can make sure we put the coverage in the right spots where you need them. There's going to be also all kinds of little intricacies along the way, depending on your property and what it has or what it does, or what's going on with it. But just making sure you have coverage for those is going to be a big thing. You're also going to want to make sure on your renters that you do some sort of background check or credit check or whatever it may be, because that is a discount for most companies on that, or they require it. If you do allow animals, not a problem, but if there has been a suit against them for animals biting, you want to make sure that we necessarily don't allow those renters. If you're using a property management company, make sure you let your insurance agent or agency know, or your company know, because that can also provide a discount. There's going to be quite a few discounts that you can get on there. So like the age of the property, if you currently have, like for example with us, if you currently have an auto policy or your personal home policy with us, that also counts for a discount, or other policies as well. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities and options to go through. But the main one you really want to look at on your house is making sure that you have enough coverage for the structure, especially with the way the market is now. Making sure that we have plenty of personal liability coverage in case we do get sued, or the renter does something and they sue, or they do it to someone else at your property. The third one's going to be, you want to make sure loss of rents or loss of use, you have plenty of coverage there. At least 12 months worth of coverage from currently what you're charging rent, if not 24. All those are going to be your major factors on your landlord policy as well. Also, telling the insurance agent or agency whether it is a 12-month lease, full-time renter, or if you're using it as an Airbnb. So there is a lot of opportunity to make money on Airbnbs. So a lot of clients have been asking about, turn this into an Airbnb. There is a difference in charge because you're running a lot more people through that home rather than one set of solid renters for a 12-month period. So making sure you have the correct coverage for that, because we would hate for them to go out, well, this was our Airbnb and we use that for an Airbnb and the damage occurred, when your policy's not set up for an Airbnb or a seasonal or vacation type home. So we want to make sure that you have that correct coverage, and you want to make sure that you have that with your current agency or your insurance company. So I did want to thank you for joining me on this episode of Doing Insurance Right, talking about landlord insurance. As always, if you could rate, review, or subscribe to whatever fantastic platform you're listening to us on, I'd greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you in the next episode.